It was a bright morning over Los Angeles International Airport, sunlight streaming through the terminal's glass ceiling as people rushed to catch their flights. Among them was Ava Lennox, a 36-year-old CEO of a luxury tech firm, poised, polished, and every bit the definition of control. Her heels clicked sharply against the marble floor as she checked her watch. She had just wrapped up a high-stakes investor meeting, and the next flight to New York was her only chance to make it in time for a major product launch. Everything about her screamed precision, until fate decided to remind her that not everything could be planned. Across the terminal, Ryan Hale, a 34-year-old single dad, was juggling a stroller, a backpack, and a sleepy 5-year-old girl named Mila. He looked exhausted, creased shirt, untied shoe, but eyes filled with the quiet tenderness of someone who'd been both mother and father for too long. Ryan had been working double shifts as a mechanic just to afford this flight to New York. His daughter's heart surgery consultation was scheduled for the next day at Mount Sinai. He didn't have the luxury of business class or perfect grooming. What he had was love, resilience, and a ticket he could barely afford. And so, by chance, or perhaps destiny, their worlds collided in seat 14B and 14 degrees Celsius. Ava sat by the window, exuding composure even as she typed furiously on her laptop. Ryan sat beside her, helping Mila get comfortable with her tiny pink blanket and a plush rabbit she refused to let go of. Mila kept sneaking glances at Ava's sleek silver laptop, fascinated by the glowing Apple logo. Ava noticed but said nothing. She wasn't used to small talk with strangers, especially ones whose lives looked nothing like hers. Then, somewhere above the clouds, exhaustion caught up with her. Ava's head tilted slightly, then rested gently against Ryan's shoulder. He stiffened, surprised but careful not to move. The woman beside him smelled faintly of lavender and calm. It had been years since anyone had leaned on him like that. He looked down at Mila, now fast asleep, and let out a small sigh. Maybe, just maybe, this was one of those rare quiet moments he needed. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and stories that remind us of our shared humanity, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness Spark. Your support helps us spread warmth, one story at a time. Ava woke with a start as the plane hit light turbulence. Her eyes widened when she realized where she was, her head still resting on the shoulder of the man beside her. She straightened immediately, cheeks flushed. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry," she whispered. Ryan gave a tired smile. "No harm done. You looked like you needed the rest." There was something disarming about the gentleness in his voice, something that didn't quite fit the picture she had painted of strangers. Minutes turned into an hour, and silence softened between them. Mila woke up halfway through the flight, rubbing her eyes and whispering, "Daddy, I'm hungry." Ryan's face fell. He had packed snacks, but she wanted something warm. Before he could say a word, Ava reached into her bag and pulled out a neatly wrapped croissant from the airport cafe. "Would she like this?" she asked softly. Mila's face lit up instantly. "Thank you," she chirped. Ryan tried to refuse, but Ava insisted. "It's fine. I wasn't hungry anyway." As Mila ate, Ryan and Ava began to talk, slowly, carefully, as if both were testing waters they hadn't entered in years. He told her about his daughter's heart condition, how his wife had passed away 3 years ago, and how he'd been doing everything to hold it all together. Ava listened, for once not thinking about stock prices or quarterly goals. She shared that she had grown up poor, had built her company from the ground up after her father's death, and sometimes felt like success had cost her her ability to feel. There was a strange comfort in that shared vulnerability. A CEO and a mechanic, bound not by status, but by exhaustion and love for the ones they had lost. When Mila dozed off again, Ryan turned to the window, and Ava found herself watching the way his hand brushed the child's hair with quiet devotion. Something about it cracked open a forgotten space in her heart. For years, she had believed strength meant never slowing down, but here was a man who had lost everything, yet carried tenderness like it was armor, Midway through the flight, Mila's breathing suddenly grew shallow. Ryan's expression changed instantly, panic flooding his face. "Mila, sweetheart, breathe for me," he whispered, shaking her gently. The color drained from her lips. Ava's instincts kicked in. She pressed the call button, shouting for help. A flight attendant rushed over, and within moments a doctor on board came forward. The next minutes were chaos. Ryan's hands trembled as he held Mila's tiny fingers. "She has a heart condition," he stammered. Please help her." Ava stood beside him, steadying his shaking shoulders. "She'll be okay," she said, though her own voice cracked. The doctor performed first aid while oxygen masks were brought. Ryan looked like he was breaking apart, whispering, "Not now, not here." Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Mila's breathing stabilized. The doctor nodded reassuringly. "She's okay. She just needs rest and oxygen. You did well, Dad." Ryan broke down in silent tears, holding Mila close. Ava turned away for a moment, tears welling in her own eyes. Something inside her shifted irreversibly. She had seen people cry in boardrooms, plead for deals, but this was raw, real, and painfully beautiful. The rest of the flight passed in a hush. Ava sat quietly beside them, offering her jacket as a blanket for Mila. When the plane finally landed, Ava didn't rush to grab her bag or check her phone. She simply followed Ryan and Mila through the terminal, her mind spinning. Outside, as taxis honked and people pushed past, she turned to him. "Can I help you get to the hospital?" she asked. He hesitated. "You've already done enough." But she wasn't ready to walk away. "Please," she insisted. "Let me." Ava called her company driver and arranged for Ryan and Mila to be taken straight to Mount Sinai. She rode along quietly, watching as Mila slept peacefully against her father's chest. Ryan looked out the window, lost in thought. "You didn't have to do this," he murmured. Ava smiled faintly. "Maybe I did." At the hospital, she waited outside while doctors examined Mila. Hours passed. Ava cancelled meetings, ignored calls, and sat in silence. When Ryan came out, eyes red but smiling weakly, he said, "They said she's going to be okay. They just need to adjust her medication. You helped save her life." Ava exhaled, her chest tight with relief. "No," she said softly, "you did." The next day she returned, not as a CEO, but as someone who couldn't stop thinking about the small girl who had smiled at her from 14 degrees Celsius. She brought a stuffed bear, some warm food, and a stack of picture books. Mila's face lit up when she saw her. "You came back," Ava smiled. "Of course I did." Over the next few weeks, Ava found herself checking in more often, sometimes with groceries, sometimes with quiet company. She even helped set up a small fundraising campaign through her company to cover Mila's future treatment costs, under the guise of an anonymous donor. Ryan eventually found out, and though his pride stung, his gratitude ran deeper. One evening, after Mila was discharged, the three of them stood outside the hospital under a pale sunset. Ryan looked at her and said, "You know, before that flight, I was starting to believe the world had forgotten about people like us." Ava smiled softly, eyes glistening. "Maybe sometimes the world just waits for the right moment to remind us we're not alone." He nodded, emotion heavy in his voice. "I'll never forget what you did for us." Ava shook her head. "You gave me something." "Too," she said quietly. "You reminded me what it means to care, not as a CEO, but as a person." Weeks later, Ava invited Ryan and Mila to her company's charity event, a warm gathering under fairy lights, laughter, and soft music. As Ava gave her speech, she looked straight at them in the crowd. "Sometimes," she said, voice trembling, "the people who teach us the greatest lessons aren't found in boardrooms or books. They're found sitting next to us on a flight we never planned to take." The audience applauded, but all Ava could see was the small child smiling up at her, clutching her plush rabbit. From that day on, Ava and Ryan's paths remained intertwined, not as charity and need, but as two souls who had found family in the most unexpected place, 30,000 feet above the ground. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe to Kindness Spark. Every click helps us keep spreading real stories of hope, love, and second chances.